Greetings, YouTube. So I was making a video yesterday, kind of a drive time, driving in the rain, and I stopped in the middle of it because, first of all, you couldn't hear anything because the rain was so loud, and it was just freakishly nasty out. I think I'm gonna die out here. It's just crazy. And then on top of that, in the middle of one of my sentences, I say I nearly got hit by a lightning bolt, but I didn't. It was really, really close though. One of those soft topper bag things that you put your luggage in and throw it on top of your roof. But it was awesome driving in the rain. I love it when it's, there's 3 or 4 inches of standing water on the roads and you come around turns. It's just a lot of fun, and I love the rain no matter how nasty it is. But what I was trying to talk about was bugging out. And the weather kind of made it for a great topic. But on top of that, this past weekend, I went on a camping trip, 3 nights, 4 days with my family. And we left Thursday afternoon. And when I got home from work Thursday, my wife had already started packing the van. And the back of our van was 3/4, if not more, full already. And by the time we were done, it was packed to the absolute top, and then the kids had stuff on their lap in the middle row. And before we left, I threw we have one of those little soft topper things that you hook onto your luggage rack and you could throw stuff up there, and I threw that in the back, spur of the moment, and I'm glad I did, because you all know that nothing you pack up ever goes back quite as nice and neatly as when it was originally packed. So when we finally got home, or we're finally packing up to come home, I had that thing full on the top of the van with suitcases, or not suitcases, but the backpacks and the duffel bags, the sleeping bags, all that kind of stuff. So it's a good thing, because we wouldn't have made it home. We would have all had stuff on our laps. It was a great little trip, nice vacation. I took the kids fishing. We didn't catch anything, but they had a great time. It was one of their first times fishing. So they had a great time, and the reason why we didn't catch anything is probably more my fault than anything. I'm not the greatest angler in the world. So I was probably hooking the lures on wrong and using the wrong baits, but I'll figure it out, and we'll eventually start catching fish. But my topic that I wanted to talk about was in the bug out. I mean, we had all of our camping gear and clothes and all that kind of stuff, and the van was absolutely packed. Now, if you're bugging out, and I guess it all really depends on the circumstance, but if you're leaving your residence for any reason, you have to have shelter, unless for some reason you have shelter at your destination, or you're going to some place that, like a friend's house or whatever, then I guess maybe you could get away with not packing that. But you gotta have shelter, you gotta have food, you gotta have water, you gotta have your health and wellness, your sanitization, your medical, and then your defense. You got to take all of the basic aspects of prepping. You have to take with you in some form or another. So how do you do that when you go camping, your entire van is full? And maybe you have a truck, and maybe this isn't quite applicable to you, but I was looking at this thing going, how in the world am I going to bug out? I've got so much stuff to do. I've got like 5 van loads of stuff that I would want to take. And I don't have a bug out location. If I bug out, it's going to be out into the mountains, in my tent for a short period of time. But it really got me thinking of how my bug out stuff is organized and prioritized. And if you've never gone through that drill before, if you've never gone through the drill of bugging out, even if it's for a camping trip, I highly advise it. If one of your preparedness items is a bug out option, then test it. Test it. Don't just test it once. Test it once a year, test it once every 6 months, once a quarter, once a month. As often as you can realistically test it. Because in like one of my previous videos, you gotta test like you fly. You gotta train like you fight. You gotta test out your gear. You gotta know how to use it. You just gotta. That's the whole point of it all. So take a look at your bug out stuff. Throw your family in the van for a camping trip. My kids wanted to do a half bug out scenario where they wanted to survive off our freeze-dried food supplies and stuff. So I busted out some Mountain House stuff and we packed it all up, and that's what we ate. And I got some videos I'm going to post up on that to review some of the new stuff we tried. But you got to test it. You got to pack it up, pack it in your van just as an exercise to see how it's all going to pack in there, or your car or your truck, and test it. And then when we were out camping, I started to think about, we were there for 3 nights, 4 days, so I knew that it was a limited term duration. We didn't have to really work to do anything other than set up the tent. We were at an established campground. They had vault toilets, so that was a little convenient. Although we did bring a little porta potty with us, so if we didn't have use of the vault toilet, we would still have that method of sanitization to work with. But if you are bugging out, and let's say you know that you're not going to be able to come back to your residence for at least 2 weeks, can you really realistically live in a tent for 2 weeks? Maybe you can. It was an experiment for me because I've never taken my family to a remote campground, even though it was an established campground. They had vault toilets there and stuff. It was still fairly remote, but I'd never done that remote scenario before with my family, and it was interesting. We had 2 tents with us, but the first night it got really, really cold, colder than we expected. So the second night we moved everybody into our tent, and I've got this 2-room, 7-foot high ceiling tent, so we could fit the 5 of us in it very easily. And so that worked out, and it made it a little bit warmer, and everybody slept better that way. But can your family realistically live out of a tent for 2 weeks? What if you got to stay there for a month? That's a long time to be sleeping on the ground. What are your sleep options? Basic survival, if that's what you have to do, you can do it. But let me tell you, sleeping on the ground for even 3 nights was rough. And I'm not super young, but I'm not an old guy, so I can do it. But then maybe it gets better after a while, and I don't know. There's a lot of things you would do differently if it was a more permanent situation, or if you knew you had to be there for at least 2 weeks or possibly a month. You could bed down under the tent to make some softer surface for you to sleep on, but you have to establish an area that you're going to use for waste disposal, where you're going to go to the bathroom at, and you're going to brush your teeth at, and you're going to wash your dishes at. You don't want to wash your dishes where you're pooping. That's just nasty. So you go to the bathroom downstream, up away from the streamaways, and then you wash your dishes upstream, and you get your water, even your drinking water that you're going to filter, even further upstream than that. So you got to have stations where you're going to do that, because the first place you tap into that water, it needs to be for your drinking water. I keep moving the camera really close like this, sorry. It needs to be where you're going to get it for your living, your drinking, your food preparation, all that kind of stuff. And then further downstream from that is your dishwashing and brushing your teeth. And then further downstream from that is where you're bathing and washing clothes. And then further downstream from that is where you're going to the bathroom and stuff like that. So I'm not saying you're going to the bathroom in the river, because you don't want to do that. You want to do that up on the land. But you want to keep it downstream from where you're collecting the water, because if you got a big rain, it might wash up and head down into the river, and then you're drinking water from where your waste is run into. So all those things to think about. Have you thought about that? Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared to dig your own vault type toilet? You go to Home Depot and get a bucket, put a toilet seat on it, bust the bottom of the bucket out, put a garbage bag to line the inside of the bucket, hook the bucket onto a 4x4 sheet of plywood, cut a hole in the plywood. So now you've got your own vault toilet. You got to dig down about 2 feet underneath that in a fairly decent sized hole for all your waste to go in. and you got yourself a vault toilet. Okay, that's not too bad, not too expensive, not too hard to do, but have you prepared for that? How are you prepared to take care of your waste? If you have to bug out, but the camping trip was a kind of an eye-opener for me. So if you've never gone camping and you're a prepper, that's kind of weird. But if that's your scenario, I highly recommend that you, this weekend or next weekend, but sometime soon, throw everything that you're bugging out with into your vehicle or whatever your scenario is and go test it. Because it was an eye-opening experience for me just to go camping. So you got to test it. Train like you fight. That's what they say. So in my world, the aerospace industry, we test like we fly. So the military, they train like they fight. So that's just my little drive time video for today in the much better weather. Nice, slightly cloudy but blue skies and no rain. 83 degrees. Yesterday it was 57 degrees out and it was raining and hailing, and the hail was pea-sized. It was hitting me on the head and it hurt when I was running to my truck after work. So anyways, that's another video. I'll post that up before this one, so you probably have watched that already. But you gotta love that nasty weather, and if you're out camping and you get hit with a storm like that, is your tent gonna survive? Because that was some serious rain. I mean, it was golf ball sized raindrops and pea-sized hail. So just food for thought, you know. It's one of those things that happens to you and you're like, well, how is this going to affect all these other different preparations I'm trying to make if this happens in the middle of something like that? So that kind of got me thinking, and that got me rambling on in this video. So there you go. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope that this was a little bit insightful, and if it didn't inspire you, then I don't know, go sit on a tack to get inspired or something. But go test it out. Test out your stuff. Test your bug out. If you've got a bag all packed and you're ready to go and this is how you're going to bug out, well, go test it just to make sure, because it's your life on the line. It's your survival. Don't leave it to chance. So that's my words of wisdom, I guess, if you want to call it that. Hope you enjoyed the video of the rainstorm, because that was just awesome. I love that kind of stuff, but I wouldn't want to be stuck out in the middle of the wilderness and something like that. So I'll stop rambling now. Thanks for watching, guys. God bless our military service members, past and present. Keep your powder dry, folks.